So once you kind of figured out your pricing model, your pricing structure, and how much your work is actually worth, then obviously you need to go out and convince the client to pay you that much. So the first thing, we actually interviewed a few people about this and spoke to them and tried to kind of gauge what we felt led to a successful pitch and who was able to actually convince their client of their worth. And really the first thing that struck us was that framing it is the most important thing. So seeing it not just as you're trying to sell to a client, but actually as an interview and not a pitch. And probably the number one source of regret that I hear from interior designers is choosing the wrong client. And it's always a client that they kind of knew from the beginning it was going to be a bit of a nightmare, but they just did it anyway. And it always is never worth it, because it ends up just taking so much more time than it was meant to, and so you just lose money on the project. So really making sure that they're the right client for you. And that isn't just like that they're going to be a mate and you're going to end up having dinner together. It's actually making sure that you really understand their needs as well. And then ultimately, like, crucially, making sure that they value your services at the same level that you valued them. So obviously, if they just don't see the benefit of your services, even though they really need to have a nice space where they can spend time with their family, if it's residential, if they haven't understood how your services are going to contribute to that, what the benefit's going to be, then they won't value your services at the same level as you, and it will be a constant battle to get them to pay the money. The onus of that is still on you as an interior designer. So communication is totally essential. And I think these 4 points are things that you just can't underestimate the importance of. Making sure that people understand what you actually do. And again, feels like this is a cause of disputes around pricing for interior designers, is they just don't get it, they just don't understand all the things that go into a project. And then they need to understand why it's important. So you might put, okay, this bit is going to be space planning, but that is like, they don't understand why it's necessarily important, even though you might think it's the most important part of the project. So again, just taking the time to communicate how that kind of brings the whole project together. And then what the benefit is as well. So this is kind of where obviously showing testimonials and pictures really helps to show how all of that thinking and all of those elements to your project result in this amazing project, and what effect that's had on the restaurant or hotel or someone's home. And then also your USP, so your unique selling point. So why are you the best person for the job? They do need to understand that, because they might be the sort of person that wants to go and get quotes from 10 different interior designers and then just compare the pricing. And they need to know a little bit more about you to obviously figure out that they want to employ you for the job. And I also think, from talking to people, it's not just about experience and relevant project experience here. It's totally fine to kind of just show your passion, your talent, your general taste, your interests, and all of that kind of contributes to why somebody would want to work with you. It's such a close relationship, especially if you're working on residential, but even commercial projects, it's really important to kind of make someone want to work with you as an individual as well. Above anything, your client needs to be able to trust you. So that's why I think just being kind of authentic in all of those points is really important. And very much related to this is the point of education. And again, this is something that came up a lot in the Design Leadership Network lunch that we did recently. And that is not just communicating. It's very easy to say, well, I'm going to do this. You really have to remember that you're still, as an industry, we're still actually in the process of educating people as to what interior designers do. And it might be frustrating, and I know a lot of people get annoyed and kind of can't be bothered with it, but actually it just is a part of the role. And will make people feel a lot better about the project once it's done as well, if they have a better understanding of the work that's gone into it. So something that's really helpful that we've seen people do is just go through a comprehensive list of all the design services that are out there, and kind of what they are, what they mean, how they're done, and then establishing the feasibility of the scheme. So educating your client as to what actually is feasible and what isn't, given a certain project, given a certain budget. Budgets are always really unrealistic, and just taking time, again, to educate them as to why it might not be realistic. Consultation to establish realistic scope, clear payment terms, so again, talking them through why you need to invoice them at a certain date, because you're going to be paying a lot of people don't understand you have to pay a deposit because you're actually ordering products that are going to be made to order. And then also having a really clear client-designer agreement just to recap everything that you've agreed, so that that's there for both sides to reference at any time. One thing to consider is at what point you charge for this work, because it can take ages. So if it is a client that you feel is going to need a lot of education, where there's going to have to be a lot of consultation to get to the point when you even have a kind of scope and timescale, then you might want to go back to thinking about charging them an hourly rate for that part of the consultation, just to make sure that there's kind of a level of commitment on their part, and again, you're covered for your time. And then closing the deal. You can't have a section on pitching without this. And actually this is where it's kind of very similar to all other industries, I have to say. But it's just something that a lot of interior designers don't think of, because you don't think of yourselves as like necessarily doing a pitch, or, you know, again, it's the kind of creative industries thing. But it is like any other business, just about really kind of responsive follow-up, and maybe even like 1 or 2 more follow-ups than you might naturally be comfortable with. Getting testimonials to provide trust, also having an online presence. Definitely, I've spoken to a lot of interior designers who haven't bothered with a website because they get loads of referrals, but then actually it feels like they are potentially losing business because somebody's gone online to try and find them, and people just see your online presence as your credibility now, as your kind of testimonials. And then consistency, just being really consistent and business-like and professional, essentially, in your approach. It's definitely interior designers that I've spoken to that have lost work because of just not kind of prioritizing that element of the project. And be willing to walk away as well, which again is really just about valuing yourself and as a professional. So finally, the purchasing section. So the reason that we've included this section as a kind of crucial element to making sure your business is commercially sound is really that time is money in this industry. And purchasing is definitely the area of the business where it feels like people can just lose the most time just without even knowing where it's gone. So the most important elements of this, and again, lots of realistic here, but it's having a realistic project scope, realistic estimation of time, and also having an efficient sourcing process, which I know is obviously kind of where we come in and is related. But it really is, when we spoke to people when we were setting up this business about how much time they spent on admin and how much time they spent on sourcing FF&E compared to how much time they thought they would on every single project. And then we kind of monitored it on a few projects, and every time it was so much more than they thought that they were spending. And like I said, if that time just kind of escalates even from, you know, a week to 2 weeks, that's a really significant impact on your profit margin for a project. So something that's important to this, to try to reduce the amount of time, or maybe just make it more manageable to estimate, is just choosing your sources really well before you even get started. So making sure that you have appropriate discounts that match basically the pricing structure that you've selected. So if you're working with a client that needs to see a saving on every product, then you need to make sure that you're working with suppliers that can offer, I guess, around 30% discounts, and just not wasting time with suppliers that aren't. Then you need to make sure you have an efficient and time-saving route to sourcing products, which is generally why most interior designers will use online sourcing as well, or going to trade shows when you maybe have like 5 projects on, or making sure that when you do go to trade shows that you've got a system in place so that you're saving those suppliers and making sure they're really accessible for next time you need to use them. Then making sure that your source has good customer service and snagging helps. That's so important, working with brands that you know are going to be there if anything does go wrong, because that's the sort of thing that will could actually take a week to sort out. And then also considering payment terms and cash flow again. So if you're working on a really big commercial project, for example, then you need to make sure that your client is going to pay some of the money up front, otherwise you're going to be lumped with huge bills for ordering products that you just won't be able to pay. And most importantly, avoiding any false economies. So these are the 3 main reasons that people end up spending way more money than they thought they would on product sourcing. One is low quality products, normally chosen by the client, not the designer, but it's kind of probably as a result of not quite explaining why they shouldn't choose that low quality product. And then it arrives and it's damaged, or it gets damaged, And then, the client thinks it's your fault, and it ends up costing a lot of time and money. Bad delivery, again, is often pushed for by the client, but also we definitely have interior designers who will sometimes try to push for cheaper delivery, and it's just kind of, people don't, I think because Amazon Prime gives free delivery or something, people don't really see delivery as something that they should pay for anymore. But unfortunately, obviously, with really expensive and delicate products, if you pay for bad delivery, the likelihood of damage is very, very high. So I think in the furniture industry in general, there's about 20% damage on furniture deliveries. It's so high that it just is never, ever worth getting bad delivery, and it will take so much time to sort it out and will delay all of your deadlines. And then poor customer service. So if anything does go wrong, because even if you avoid those things, things will go wrong still. If there aren't people around to help you, then that will really sap your time. And overall, maintaining really good client communication throughout the process and having a really efficient process for this. So another thing that we see taking a lot of time is when designers will kind of be getting approval from their clients on a product by product basis. And so the client approval, which should have maybe taken 3 sessions, can end up going across a whole month. And the ways that we've seen people deal with this are, one, just agreeing a sign-off process with the client beforehand as part of the project. So saying, look, we're going to have 3 sessions where we do product sign-off. Of course, there's space for iteration. And of course, that might be really hard to achieve, but at least it kind of sets up in the client's mind an understanding that that is an element of the project that takes time as well. And then having options ready when you show your client the products, and also having all the information you need ready when you show the client the product. So sometimes something that we get is people having sign off on a product but not with all the information, and then maybe it comes back, so maybe there's not a finish available that they kind of suggested to the client, and then it kind of gets them back to square one. So just making sure that when you present products to clients, it will save you time to have all the options and information to hand, so that you can get as much kind of sign off as you can within that meeting. So in summary, from me, the kind of top tips that the team and our kind of community felt were A, just to remember always, always, always that time is money. Then just being realistic and always kind of tracking and monitoring your projects as you go. So looking back on projects and looking at how long something actually took compared to what you thought it took, and then basically just refining that and just get better and better at that process. And charging a professional fee for your services. So generally, it feels like in the industry, the way it's evolving now is that people don't make enough money just on FF&E, and that actually, ideally, you should be charging a professional design fee for your services, as well as potentially a cost plus on the FF&E. Choosing your client carefully, as I said, is the #1 regret that we get. Educating your client, actually taking that time and seeing it as a serious part of the role, and just maintaining trust throughout the whole process with your suppliers and your clients.